Alla Tkachuk, founding director of the Mobile Art School in Kenya, also known as MASK. Welcome to the JSO interview.
Thank you, John.
I do believe that on June the 11th this year, you are the mastermind behind an exhibition to be held at the National Museums of Kenya. And I would like you to start by telling us more about that exhibition on June the 11th.
Sure. In January this year, I came to Kenya and we launched a national art competition. It's a national art competition which will be run annually, and it's called MASK Art Prize. The purpose of the competition is to provide young people in Kenya with opportunity to develop their creativity. So we invited young people under 25 who live in Kenya, or maybe members of Kenya diaspora abroad, to submit their artworks. And the theme for the artworks for this year was, what makes you proud about Kenya? And the media they could paint in, all media, two-dimensional media. So it's painting, collage, drawings, mosaics, anything they could do in two-dimensional media. So far, we launched it in January, and the deadline for submissions was 1st of May. And we have more than 1,000 artworks submitted, beautiful artworks, by young people, but also 80 schools across Kenya and 15 universities.
Right. My only concern when you say that you include people from the diaspora is that they have some sort of advantage of living in a first world, and therefore that they are likely to be slightly more subtle because they've had an impregnation of some kind of influence from the West, so to speak.
I think that I understand your point. I think the criteria for this competition wasn't the artistic excellence. I think what we want to achieve with this competition is to increase number of young people engaged in visual arts. Never mind, doesn't matter where they are. We want them to start practicing visual arts. I think that was the criteria, participation. Participation.
Right, so let's go back. So June the 11th, things are going to happen. Where did it all begin? How did you, a Russian woman, end up to be a flag bearer for arts, creativity in Kenya, a country miles away from your motherland?
You're right, John. I am Russian. I came from Russia in the 80s to United Kingdom, and I live in London ever since. Being a Russian girl in Soviet Union, it was at the time, I fell in love with Africa because we had this wonderful program called In the World of Adventure, and the presenter always took us to Africa. So my passion was to go and see Africa. And as it happens, when you have some purpose in life, it will materialize sooner or later. And I met someone in London who invited me to come to Masai Mara. And I particularly I didn't want to see game, but I wanted to meet people. And he introduced me to some people from Masai land. And I stayed with them for 3 weeks painting with them. So that's how I came to Kenya, that's how.
And you've been coming regularly ever since, because in direct relationship to the creation of MASK. I mean, that's how.
That's right. This is how I came first to Kenya, and I was so beautifully welcomed by the community. I wanted to do something in return, and I asked elders, "What can I do? I have 12 brushes and some paper." They said, "Well, maybe you can teach our kids to paint," and that's what I did.
Right.
And that was the beginning, something which inspired me greatly. And I wanted to do more of that. So the following year I came to Kenya, that was 2007. And I traveled in Pokot and Turkana land, and Samburu land. And that's what I did when I would see school. I would go with my art materials and work with children. And at some point, a headmaster came to me and said, "Alla, what you do with children is wonderful. And we wish we would do it all the time. And I said, well, what do you mean? Don't you do it all the time? And he said, no, we don't teach our children arts.
Right,
we don't in arts or for arts.
Right. As we have this conversation, I would say, without being unkind, because you're coming into an environment and you're saying there is a complete lack of focus on something that means a lot to you. So you're going to change that. But doesn't it seem to me that you should be changing the government, the society itself, so it doesn't become a one-woman crusade to bring art teaching to Kenya?
I see, John, you said complete. I didn't say that.
Right,
you said
I
complete
did say
absence.
That because I'm, you know,
I'm not suggesting that. I'll come back to that. I actually didn't believe that that's the situation. It's still not the case. It's not a complete absence.
So there's no art teaching in Kenya. You would make a statement as grand as that.
This is fact. I'm not making any statements. This is the fact.
Right.
There's no art education or creative arts subject in secondary curriculum at all. There is creative arts in the curriculum for primary school education. There is. But because it's not examinable, teachers again and again and again tell me that we don't teach it. And we use this time which allocated for creative arts. It's 62 hours a year per child allocated for creative arts. But those time used to do other activities in school. And it's because it's not examinable.
So in other words, time allocated for art is being eaten up
by other subjects.
By so-called more important subjects.
More important subjects which are examinable. Yes, that's
true. So
yes.
It's died a death because of neglect.
Exactly.
But in theory, on paper, it exists.
On theory, on paper, it exists.
Right.
There's also other reasons. There's lack of teachers who can teach creative arts, which is not true because every teacher who teaches at primary level studying creative arts in their teacher training, as part of their teacher training program.
But I'm actually perhaps encouraging you in a way to point a finger at government and say, give back those 62 hours as part of the crusade.
Yes, I'm encouraged to say that. Yes, I don't need encouragement to say that. I do say that. The government should look at it again and see if there's I worked with certain institutions in Kenya, education institutions, and there's a great will for creative arts. And I think there needs to be a discussion about how creative arts could be examined.
Right.
So it doesn't work against the purpose of creative education, because as you know, formal examination could scare kids, and it's not maybe appropriate.
But the creative arts, are you taking painting as just one aspect? Now, I have a great passion for the theatre, and I would think that the whole of life's problems would be solved if children were encouraged to go and perform.
Do you believe in that?
It would make them more self-confident.
Yeah.
It would make them so.
Exactly.
Why the passion for the creative arts? I'm saying act on stage because that will make you self-confident as you walk around. What is for you the great benefit of painting, which is your speciality? Yeah,
visual arts. We do focus on visual arts at the moment.
I've never painted in my life. Is there a great lack? Is there horrible?
No.
Am I sort of a diminished human being?
Absolutely. No, you're not diminished human being, John.
Right.
At all.
So what is to be gained?
Visual arts, it's a very good question. And I ask myself that question. We started with visual arts just because I'm a visual artist. I'm a painter. That's how we began. Ideally, we'd like to grow our program into other areas of creative arts, music, theatre, film, digital art. And we will. Hopefully one day we'll include all those disciplines. But you would agree with me, John, that all those disciplines are visual. I mean, all creativity is highly visual. And when I ask myself, why do I focus on visual arts? I started to research, and I have done a lot of research. Why visual arts are so important to creativity. There was a research been done on, just an example, research been done on Nobel Prize nominees, Nobel Prize scientists nominees. And what they've discovered, scientists who did that research, that those scientists were highly visual people. They had acute visual skill. And I asked myself, well, I wanted to know more. What is visual skill really is? And as I understand, it comes to two aspects. It's one, acute skill of observation. That helps you to be creative.